What's going on? My hitters out there, all of them, every single one of them that are scouring fucking every single corner of this earth, because apparently this podcast is being listened to from people from Alaska down to New Zealand. So I would say that's a good range, right? That's almost the entire world. They can almost touch each other, maybe, kind of. Welcome. This is episode 21, and special thing about this episode is that this episode was long in the making. You know, I mentioned it at the very beginning. I mentioned it somewhere in the middle. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago, and it's finally fucking happening. It's the Rocky episode. It's the Rocky episode. Everybody, are you excited? You excited? I'm excited. This episode was really fun, really interesting to record. The way that it came about, obviously, at some point I knew that I had to do this episode. It wasn't that I was dreading it. I think I just put so much hype on myself that I was just kind of scared to do it because I'm gonna fricked it up. But I'm sitting here. I came home, was gonna eat dinner. Was making my dinner, and then I put the movie on, and I was just my cousin, my little weird cousin, cowboy guy came over, Santi, and he started watching it, and then my dad came downstairs, my hitter, my pops, he came downstairs, and I was just sitting there kind of taking notes and pausing the movie, asking questions about it, and then pretty soon it was kind of like, fuck, dude, we have so many like varying opinions. It's probably cool if we get in on it. At least my cousin was going to, and then my dad came downstairs and was eating dinner, and he was like giving me his opinion. Like, you know what? Whatever. You're on. You're live. You're on the air. So he came in, and then somewhere like 15 minutes into the episode, Megan comes in. We pick up a damsel in distress, and that's Megan. So she comes in about 15 minutes into the episode, and she leaves periodically throughout it. So she's been on the podcast before, so she knows what she's doing. She doesn't know how to fucking talk into a mic anyway. I don't think any of us do, to be honest. But really happy to make this episode. Really excited, and I really do hope that everyone here has a great time listening to it, because like I said, it sure was fun recording it. And I'm always open to ideas and things to talk about. You know, if you have any questions or if you have any dilemmas, anything going on in your life, and you want my perspective on it, even though I'm not qualified to do anything really other than talk about myself and weightlifting, I would love to give you my perspective on things. So you can always reach me at, you know, my Instagram. Or the email, and I also have a website. I'm gonna put the link in the description of this episode, and you guys can always follow up on those. But gosh, it was really fun doing this episode, and I hope you enjoy it, because it sure was enjoyable to do this for you guys and get this going. So without further ado, Rocky 1, episode 1. Let's go.
I wouldn't take you here if I didn't think you could do it.
What's going on, hitters? That's how I start this every time. Well, oh my gosh, my voice looks super loud on those record decibels. Well, welcome back. This is episode number 21. Number 21. 21, and I'm joined by my fantastic guests. I'm joined by my weary cowboy of a cousin, and
yeah.
I don't know what do we call this guy, because you know our episodes that we've done before, that's the two weary cowboys on their sad journey of life. Who's this guy? two weary cowboys.
I'm the Mexican that you pick up along the way.
You're the Gaucho. So I guess
There you
two
go.
weary cowboys and a
And a
Gaucho. So it's me. I'm your hitter. I'm your hitter, Caesar. You know me. And then my weary cowboy cousin.
Hitter Santi.
Yeah. And then my hitter Pops over here.
Yep.
What's your name?
Caesar.
Yeah.
As well.
It's boring. It's boring.
It's boring.
So it's episode 21. And you know what? This goddamn episode has been a long time in the making. Let me tell you. Guess what we're gonna talk about today, everybody?
Dun dun
Dun,
dun
dun,
dun 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 dun.
Yes.
Yeah,
We're talking about finally getting around to the Rocky Balboa episode. Round 15. Yeah, I've been talking about making this episode for the past like 15 episodes, and I just keep kind of blowing it off. And I just didn't want to disappoint, so I figured, what's a better way to do it than with two other people and kind of get their perspective on it. But remember, first things first, how are you guys doing? I hope all you listeners are doing really well. Because if you're not doing well, it does get better out there. It's okay. It happens.
Sure does.
I've been we'll talk about that. And then, this weird cowboy, he's been on vacation just living it up, and
you could say that.
and then this guy over here, this Gaucho over here, he's been just doing the same thing.
He's doing the same thing.
Doing the same thing.
Listen, Diego, I just noticed.
What's
You got
up?
a tattoo? How did you get that?
What do you mean? I showed it to you a while ago.
Did you really?
Yeah,
I guess I wasn't paying attention.
I think so. Or
Shit,
you just wanted to block
no.
it out.
Maybe. It's because I want to. Yeah. Maybe that's what it
That's
is.
probably it.
Damn. Dude, he didn't show it to me.
What is
I
it?
don't remember it being a skull.
Well, what is
my
what,
tattoo?
I
what
do
is-
not remember him. No, you didn't show it to me.
What
man.
is- what is
I
this?
came here and
No,
picked
you-
up
Yeah.
Cuzzo over here.
No.
'cause he-
Oh, you took him?
I tell
That's
you,
the one you took him for?
yeah, that's my spot in T-Mac, bro. What
No, I didn't see it though.
what does it say?
Shouts out.
So it goes.
Shout out
Rose?
Old Rose tattoo.
You know that could have just gone on a T-shirt.
I mean, yeah, but I mean,
that could have gone on a hat too.
but I mean, how
So it goes.
how dedicated
Dot.
how dedicated are you to
Well,
like
Yeah,
an
this is-
actual thing?
I'm
you know?
dedicated
this is-
to things.
That's a
I don't
reminder.
have to.
That's a reminder.
You know what reminds me of Siri? Siri, remind me of so and so.
That's not even cool, bro.
Hey,
What is
Siri.
okay?
Siri, remind me of.
Hey, I don't have a phone right now, so I
Yeah,
can't
he
talk to
can't do
Siri.
that.
So better.
He lost it in Mexico.
What?
Yeah, I did.
What happened?
Yeah.
It was, alcohol is a hell of a drug.
Apparently.
What does your tattoo say? What does it mean?
It says so it goes. It's
Oh.
Hey Siri, remind me so it goes.
Okay, I'll remind you.
Simple as that.
You're boring, dog.
Apparently.
Okay. Well, I
Yeah,
hope
that's what happens when you get older. I guess.
I hope that you guys are all doing well, and you just how are you guys doing? Before we get into Rocky, how are you guys doing out here? Let's start with the Gaucho across from me. How are you doing, Gaucho? Pops?
Not too bad, man. Not too bad. You know how things are going. We have our conversations.
Yeah.
Life.
Yeah.
Right.
But the
Right.
people don't know. What are the people talking about?
I mean, look, life, no matter what goes on, life, you live it. That's it. It's whatever you do in between. And
So it goes, right?
Hey, so exactly the way Santiago's tattoo goes, right? So it goes. Apparently, I'm gonna put that on the hat. I'm gonna market it.
Okay. Well, what about you, Cowboy? Because I know everyone's been missing you since the last time you were here.
Yeah, I mean it's been real, like you said. Just getting back from vacay out in Cabo. I mean it was good to, get a breath of fresh air. All I'd been doing is working.
Just
And,
kinda-
we kind of talked about that sad boy life.
Just take
of work.
Just take a break. What is that?
I don't know why she's barking.
What is that?
Somebody here?
Oh my gosh. I'll be back momentarily. Big moves. gigantic moves. Well, I guess before we were so rudely interrupted by my dog downstairs, and while my hitter Gaucho over here is trying to hook up the extra cable so we can apparently have a fourth one on this podcast, even though that's just a ridiculous amount of people.
Listen, that's the reason why you have extra mics in case guests come over.
Yeah,
and you're
but
like, hey,
she
by the way, I was in the middle
didn't
of
even watch the movie with us. What kind of input is she gonna have? She didn't even watch the movie. She never even actually seen Rocky. You know,
Just keep going.
she's never even seen Rocky.
What are you talking about? I did like 8 years ago.
8 years ago. See, it doesn't even
I've
matter.
been, like, 6,
All right. Well,
but he's not.
big moves.
Pause it.
Big move. Oh my God. Work now.
Oh, what is this?
All right. We're back again. So, I guess it's 2 weary cowboys, a gaucho, and some damsel in distress that we just picked up along the way because
Some dame along the way.
she just decided that she wanted to just be a part of this. Can you talk in the microphone?
Yeah, hey
Is it on?
guys. Is it working?
Definitely not, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't sound like him.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah,
Megan,
so-
you have to talk into the microphone.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
There
yeah,
we go.
Yeah.
Great. Now that we're back and we have 4 lines going, big moves. I was just kind of mentioning that big moves from everybody. Everybody out here. I would like. If we're talking about Rocky, obviously the first thing is. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when you think about Rocky? Let's go, Megan. What do you think about Rocky Balboa? You're the first one that I saw.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, you know what? I know you haven't seen the movie in 8 years. This
It's
guy,
literally been 8 years.
Santi, just told me that he's never actually seen the movie all the way through. So I don't
Pay
know.
attention to it, right?
I don't know who's.
You've gone through it, but you just haven't paid attention.
Well,
to
no,
it.
I've seen bits and pieces,
He's
What?
in
but
bits
I've
and
never
pieces.
actually finished
okay.
the movie. Yeah,
Alright.
so I didn't even know the end. But I mean, it's a great film.
Yeah.
It's definitely a great film. Especially in, with this context, I knew you wanted to do this episode for so long, and I mean, it was pretty cool that I just so happened to come on over, and I mean that
it wasn't
context
planned?
given.
It wasn't
Not-
planned this, and
not
Dave was going to
really.
come.
I mean, it
I
was
mean-
planned that he was
We
going to come
could have all
over.
watched the movie beforehand.
Oh, we did. Like we watched it.
I wasn't invited to that part.
Yeah,
That
because
was
I mean, yeah, but I mean, it was like I said, great movie. It embodies a lot. Definitely embodies a lot, and I mean, just the American dream. Not necessarily the American dream, but I want to say just given an opportunity, you take it, you run with it, and especially I don't want to say anything from the film itself necessarily,
That's
uh,
right, 'cause it's
in
on
the
top, right?
yeah, but
You have a little outline going.
I think we go based
Yeah,
off
what
the
are you
outline
doing
because
over
I'm gonna
there?
start like
I mean-
spilling over on all
just-
this stuff.
It's all right. It's all right. I just put the movie on while I was eating my rice dinner because I didn't make any other food, and then I was like, maybe I should start actually taking an outline and taking notes so I can actually get this one out of the way.
Right. Yep.
I didn't start taking notes until maybe like 20 minutes in the movie, but I mean,
Hey, we didn't start until like
yeah, you guys,
almost
yeah,
halfway.
you
in the
guys,
movie.
Yeah,
you guys
I
did
can
pop.
tell.
I was the only one committed. Megan, I wasn't even here, so
I wasn't.
I mean, at least one of us is here. So Megan, when you think about Rocky, what
I
is?
was really hoping you would.
No,
ask
we're
me
not
this.
just going to gloss over. What do you think about it? Because we just heard what Santi Boy says. What do you think about
Okay,
when you
from
think
what
of
I
Rocky?
remember, I'm gonna be honest. I'm hoping it's the right movie. Okay, so here we go. But from what I remember, is this better? Okay.
Way.
From what I remember, it was somebody who had like all odds were against him. Am I thinking about a whole
No,
different-
no, you're
I'm
good.
not.
Just keep
I'm
going.
not. Okay.
No, you're good.
All odds were against him, and it really wasn't looking up.
What sport is that?
It's fighting, MMA, right?
No,
No.
it's boxing.
Oh, it's boxing. Whatever. Okay.
I think Megan's
Two
gonna-
I don't think
people
MMA was
going
not-
at
I
it.
think Megan's gonna add another depth to this conversation.
Okay. God, anybody who's like a Rocky fan is freaking out right now.
Pissed.
Yeah,
I mean, they're pissed because
super
they haven't
pissed.
put this episode out, but they're
Yeah,
pissed.
they're probably done already. But no, it's somebody who like all odds were against him, But despite all of that, he was resilient. He stayed focused. He did what he wanted to do, and he saw an opportunity, and he rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
And that, right? My God. I'm
Yeah,
doing
you're
such
pretty.
a
I
good-
mean, you're
Am I
pretty
really?
close.
I mean, I guess an
It's
opportunity was
along those
given
lines.
to him.
Hey,
He
it
didn't
was-
arise to it.
We'll
but-
get into that.
Yeah,
What about you there, Gaucho? What do you think about Rocky?
I
Because
really feel like you should have asked him first.
because you were born. It came out in 1970. What?
Yeah, well, I was
1970 something. You were
I
just
wasn't
born
yet.
77.
I was born in '77, so
When-
that movie didn't come out till before I came into this world. So, but no, I mean it's the ultimate. You know, whenever anybody thinks about underdogs, who do they think-
1976.
they think about 76. So it was the year
76.
before, yeah. Who do they think about? They think about Rocky. Like they always talk about the ultimate underdog, and that's what it was. A guy that came out of from nothing and
Obscurity.
yeah, I mean, he called himself. What was the word he always
Called himself a
he
bum.
Called himself a bum.
Half a bum.
Which means that along the way in his own in the character's childhood, things happened to him, or maybe they were told to him that just kind of like affected him to the point where he got to where he's at. So yeah, I mean, you're talking about somebody that came from nowhere and he became somebody.
Yeah.
As the character was basically written. So.
I mean, if I sit back and think about Rocky, I personally think that, I mean, I'm the embodiment of Rocky himself.
Oh, are you?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. I
kinda
mean,
sound like him
if I
sometimes.
think about it, I think about being an underdog. I think
You're right. I
about
used to call you a bum when you were a kid.
I'm
Hey,
the
bum.
I'm the underdog, the bum type guy. I'm getting
I don't even think I called him Angel. I called him Bum.
I'm getting partially coached by like a 75-year-old white guy. I guess you could say that. I guess you could say I'm
Dude,
pretty
you-
much Rocky Balboa.
Wait, can we cuss on this?
Yes.
Oh, okay. He's gonna kick your ass. He's only 73.
Okay. You know what? Mickey was 76, so I
Right,
kind of just.
I told the real age, okay?
I-
Listen here, Pacha, okay? You're
so
so wise.
when I think there's times in my life in my weightlifting career and all the stuff that I've done where I've really had to kind of dig deep and find different aspects of myself that really resonate with the character. Like back when with U25, and I talk about that meet a lot, where I was really scared right after my injury. I remember sitting downstairs in the buffet at the basically in the buffet, really terrified about the fact that I had to go and lift weights later. And there's a practice, something that this Gaucho has taught me is, finding bits and pieces of your other self. Your other self is the kind of the culmination of everything that you need to be in any situation that needs to move you forward in a positive way, in any sort of emergency situation. And I remember writing out a really long note to myself about who I was and who I am, and I signed it, Caesar Angel Rocky Balboa Flores, and because I really resonate with that. He's when we get to the episode 3, about and when he fights Clubber Lang, and I've talked about it before, but I was really, really scared, and then going upstairs before competing, I watched the movie, and I timed it up to where right before Rocky goes out to the fight, goes out to fight Clubber, I was sitting there watching it up until that point. I went and competed and then did as well as I did, and then came back and watched the rest of the movie because it was kind of like the culmination of everything. It was the same thing. It was fear. Fear took over his life for a period and then came out. So I have a really deep connection with those movies and really, really enjoy those movies. But well, let's just get into it then. So, Rocky starts with the opening scene where he's going and he's fighting that other guy, the other guy in the ring at the bar. It's not really that nice of a fight. It's not that good of a fight. And, at the very end of it, Rocky takes home like $40 and he walks home and he walks home. Oh, like he's getting called a bum and shit. And it's really hurtful, and then, then you kind of get a little bit more expose when you learn about him, and he's like working for goddamn gangster. Like, he's a debt collector. He's going around breaking people's thumbs and shit. And it's like, right, so this guy likes boxing. He's kind of a shady character. He's kind of going out. He's not doing too many positive things in life, in his own life or anybody else's life. So where I started taking notes, and really started paying attention to the film was when Rocky goes into the bar. And that's when you first kind of get a taste of Apollo Creed, when he starts talking about how he's opening up the he just has a fight. He has the fight coming up on the, what is it, bicentennial, because it's 1776. Yeah, bicentennial for America. And the bartender just kind of starts talking shit, and he's like, look at this clown. And Rocky sits there, and he's like, clown? You called him the champ a clown? And
wait, is that how you said it?
Yeah, well, he's like,
No, you called it a champ a clown?
Okay, that doesn't
No,
even
he
sound like
doesn't.
him.
Close enough.
Apollo says something that I thought was really clever, where he goes, stay in school and use your brain. Be a doctor, be a lawyer, carry a leather briefcase. Forget about sports as a profession. Sports make you grunt and smell. Be a thinker, not a stinker. and as much as I agree with that very last part, like to be a thinker, not a stinker, because I'm trying to make a sport in my life, and I'm kind of doing the exact opposite of what he's doing. But being a thinker, not a stinker, I think that's a good part to touch on, because that's essentially what this episode is going to be on. It's going to be about the lessons and everything that we kind of saw throughout the movie, and the things that you can probably take away from the movie that you didn't even think about. But being a thinker, not a stinker, what does that mean? What does that mean to you, Megan? What do you think being a stinker, not a thinker mean? Oh, being a thinker, not a stinker means?
Well, I think that can go in like 9 different directions.
One. Most important one.
I mean, to me, that's just talking. That's another way to say to be resilient. Don't give up. Like, just keeping it super simple. Like, be smart, or work smarter, not harder. I say that all the time, but I really feel like that's probably a little bit more of where it's going. Be intentional with what you do. Don't just do it because you're supposed to do it, or it's what everybody says is the right thing to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I hear that, honestly, yeah, I just think work smarter, not harder.
Whose phone was that?
I'm so sorry. I don't know the rules in here.
Yes, you do. This is not the first time that you've done this.
It's been like 3 months.
So right after that, Rocky looks at him and he goes, "It's like, you crazy?" It's like, the guy's a champion of the world, and he goes that he took his best shot at becoming the champ, and he's looking at the bartender and he goes, "What shot did you ever take?" And when he says that, I really resonated with that, because it's very similar to the situation that I am in now, that, with work and taking a step back from my responsibility at work and not being a manager anymore. That's a new step for me, only because of the fact that I wanted to take a shot. I wanted to take a shot at what it is that I wanted to do. So the bartender just kind of turns around and he goes, "Look, Rocky, if you're not happy with your life, that's nice. But I got a business here. I got a business here. I'm not going to take no shots." And
so in other words, he's not taking any risks.
Yeah, Rocky, you can see that he gets visibly upset, and he leaves $1 and he goes, "Stick that up your business."
Way to go, Rock.
But Mr. Gaucho over here, because I know that you're the emotional one, then you want to talk about emotion about this entire movie. Why did he get upset? Why did Rocky get visibly upset when the bartender was like, that he doesn't have to take any shots, and that Rocky's unhappy with his life because he didn't take any shots?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things where he basically starts looking at, that's what I want, right? I mean, that's what he's looking at. He's saying that's what I want, and he's been basically holding himself back from taking any type of risk, which happens to a lot of us in life.
How can you resonate with that personally?
There's a lot of different ways that I think I could relate to that to the point where it's like in anything that you do, it doesn't matter what it is. Bottom line is at the end of the day, and Bailey likes when people say that at the end of the day, it's just the fact that any risk that you take, whatever you think it is, right? It doesn't matter. It could be a small thing, a big thing, but for you, it's personal. It's always personal. The risks are always going to be personal, and it's going to be painful to you, whether you do something good with it or it doesn't go your way. So it's just a matter of, I think Rocky he sat there and he's like, man, you don't know what you're talking about, because Rocky has dreams and he's still had them and he's still going further with them, and he just kind of going through life. Just like a lot of other people go.
Stick that in your business. So he kind of next scene right after that. It's from what I remember, even though I watched the movie we all watched the movie 45 minutes ago. Rocky's hanging out with Paulie, and he's going over to their house for Thanksgiving dinner, and that's when Paulie freaks out and he's like, I want you to take my sister out and have a good time. There's a big argument between Paulie and Adrian, and it ends with Rocky and Adrian leaving to go to the ice skating rink, and there was a really, as far as dialogue in the film, there's a really important part in that film where, if you think about it, you can kind of gauge where Rocky's mentality is with what he's doing. He mentions that fighting used to be his top priority. That he says that used to be tops with me, but not anymore. All I wanted to do out of fighting was to prove that I was no bum, and that I had the stuff to actually make a good pro. And Adrian just kind of just questions him and goes, you never got the chance, and you never got the chance to get it, right? And he's like, you never got the chance to do it. And he kind of answers, he goes, I don't cry about it, because he still does it. He still fights, and he still does it, but it's more of like a hobby. It's not anything serious. And he kind of makes an excuse for himself right after that, saying that he's a southpaw. And apparently in Philadelphia in 1976, apparently being a southpaw was the reason why he never got a shot, because being a southpaw makes you look awkward, makes you look gangly, you just kind of look stupid. Now, this weary cousin of mine, my weary cowboy cousin, what do you think about all that? What do you think? Because I know we talked in depth about this part where he just kind of made excuses for himself, and he really didn't. He really counted himself out beforehand. What do you think about him being just everything, man? What do you think about him doing it like a hobby and not being his priority, the top of his list, because he just doesn't think that he's good enough?
Well, there was a key point that we had brought up while we were watching the film, how he had already set himself up for failure, and thinking that he's not good enough to do it seriously, but also the fact that he we were just talking about how he was thinking it was better to not pursue it, and look dumb, than to pursue it, potentially look dumb, but have a better outcome, and it's that fear that's it's almost like or I guess something else matters rather than you, I guess, taking what it is that you want and running with it. It's not so much that I guess you want to succeed in that, but that you don't want to be seen as weird or different. You want to take it the same route as everyone else. And it's just he wasn't willing to take that risk. He wasn't willing to put out and do that himself. Dang, I forgot what my point was because I was going off tangent. I was going on a tangent there.
Think about it. Think about it, because Megan, I know that with weightlifting and everything that we do as weightlifters, I know at some point, at some starting point, I guess it's with everything, but I can take weightlifting as an example. When you start doing something as complex as weightlifting, like one movement like snatch or clean and jerk, you're gonna look stupid.
It's true.
I mean, when you podcast and you don't talk in the microphone,
I'm
you're
so
like,
sorry. It's true. I think when you asked him this question, I was kind of thinking about it. And I think when he says, like, I haven't really been presented an opportunity, I actually feel like, yes, it is a cop-out answer, but it's also kind of the sign of, like, a fixed mindset. I think it's him being like, okay, this is me saying that I haven't been, because of my circumstances, I have never had the opportunity to show who I am, when in reality, he's afraid of who he could be, because that means that he would have to be something bigger than who he is.
What's that quote? About being, or our deepest fear? What is it?
Oh, the one about our deepest fear is not. What is it? Not that we're afraid.
Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure.
Yeah.
It is our light, not our darkness, that frightens us.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, and I think so that's really good. And if you think about it, like for me personally, one of my biggest fears is not reaching my full potential in life in general. Like, yes, as an athlete, but am I really, like, I constantly question, am I really doing what I'm meant to be doing? Am I really, like, having an impact on the people around me? Am I being the best version of myself? And it would be, if I think about it too much, I totally find myself having to check my attitude about it. Because then it's like, okay, well, look at your circumstances. Look at the cards that you've been dealt. And it would be so easy when you start to kind of go in that spiral to just, like, let it continue. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with him. It was his way to say, like, I'm afraid. Not, I haven't actually had a true opportunity, because you always do in some way. That's all perspective. But I really think it was him saying, like,
You're just making excuses.
oh, 100%.
Yeah.
But it's a fancy way to say I'm afraid.
Yeah.
You know, it's
But
interesting to touch. Oh, sorry,
No, go ahead.
That's because the whole "I'm afraid" thing. That's the thing that I think a lot of people have to understand and face it. Especially, obviously, I'm older, so I'm able to kind of reflect back and sit there and say, well, there's a lot of things that I was afraid of along the way, but I didn't want. I guess in a way, I was afraid, but I didn't want to show that I was afraid. And I think that's almost like a weakness.
Yeah.
If you do that, because what starts happening is, if you start acting like you're not afraid, then you're kind of hiding, and then all of a sudden these insecurities come up, and you're constantly having to, like, hide things.
Well, that's kind of like what happened later on when Rocky's talking when they're sitting right after they announced the fight with Apollo, and then they're talking, and then they have the announcer starts, like, talking shit about who Rocky is as a person, and then and then Rocky kind of puts on a front where he's like, I don't care about what they're saying.
Right.
And then he's walking out to leave, and then he goes, what, when those guys were saying what they were saying on the TV, yeah, it hurt, like it mattered.
Exactly. I mean, okay, so Dale, what you were gonna say? Sorry if I go.
No, it was just I mean, just the pure fact that there should have been a moment, that there should have been a time where he could have had his chance or his opportunity. I mean, there's no perfect time. There's just plain and simple. There's not necessarily always going to be a time that puts out for you. You have to go out and kind of create it. And in order to do that, I mean, to go back on what Megan was saying, just thinking, whether or not you're doing what it is that you should be doing. I mean, think about what a perfect time is. If you're questioning what it is that you're doing, I mean, that's kind of crazy because you're never going to get that time again. And technically you should always see every single, opportunity or moment that you are lifting or, that you're training. You should see that as the opportunity that's presented itself for you. You woke up and you're creating that moment. Every second of every day has to be, used. So
I think that's what we've talked about before while we slave away at work all day and no one comes in the door, is how the one thing that you'll never get back, the one thing that you'll never get back is your time. So the longer you wait waiting for a perfect moment that's never going to come, that's just time.
Well, and like really, well, we both were super excited there. But like, if you really think about it, what is a perfect moment? Like, that's all perspective. Because for some people, they're like, oh, this moment doesn't count because it's not broadcasted in front of this big crowd of people.
I think
and
a
then
perfect...
for other people, it's more so like, oh, for me, this isn't what I would consider something that revealed who I am as a person. Therefore, it's not a perfect moment. I think those are so opposite.
Yeah, I think the perfect moment is that we keep referring to, as far as like the movie. It's the one shot that could have taken him to the next level. It's that, like, yeah, if you think about it, obviously there's different ways to perceive a perfect moment, whether it's broadcasting it out to the world or something that makes them feel valued. But it's in this sense, it's like getting your one shot at a title. It only came because this was random, but it wasn't something they had worked at before. It just didn't happen.
Well, something just came to mind. Let's look at it like this little analogy about time, right? And I think we've had conversations when it comes about time where Napoleon Hill talked about that, where it's like time doesn't wait for you. Time
waits for no man.
Time waits for nobody. Time just continues to go and go. Even when people die, time keeps going. It doesn't matter.
True.
It's like people leave.
Church.
You keep going. Yeah. There's a game on Sunday. 1:00. Chargers kicking off. You know what I mean?
They suck.
So
they lost.
Whatever. So the idea is everybody's always like the perfect time. I know I have throughout my years. Perfect time, right? Never came. Perfect time's never coming. It's like whatever time is in front of you, whatever's in front of you, you're right, Santiago. That's the time. Like, why are you waiting for whatever, right? I remember when we were talking about doing the podcast. Oh, until we get the perfect mics and we get the headphones and this and that. It didn't matter. It's whatever you have in front of you is what you have to do. That's what you have to use. Think of it like this. You're waiting at a bus. And you got to get to a destination, but you're waiting for that perfect bus, right?
You're waiting for
that
the bus.
one awesome looking bus. A clunky bus pulls up and says, "Hey, we're going your way," and you're like, "No, I'm waiting for the next bus," and that's like the last bus you're ever gonna get. There's no more buses that night. Yeah. That's the bus, and no matter how nasty looking it is, that's gonna get you to your destination, and that's what it is. It's time. Like. Doesn't matter. There is no perfect time. It's whatever's in front of you at that very moment.
Well, think about it. You expand on that analogy right there. Like the distance you have to go is like 2 miles down the road, right? This bus has 10, 15 stops in front of it. You're gonna get there 5 minutes later than if you would have ran. So why don't you just run? Obviously, it's in real life situation. You can't get sweaty before work.
Sure you can.
But
hey, trust me that people have walked if their cars break down.
Yeah, you take action. You know what I mean? You take action. Yeah,
that's it.
I was talking to Bailey the other night at dinner. We were just kind of talking about
Uber, by the way, Lyft. You know what I'm saying?
We were talking about. I don't drink and drive. We were talking about how my dream and my goal is to make the stipend for USAW and to like be a full-time sponsored athlete. Like for me, that's my goal. That's my main goal. But unless I do something about it now, and that's what I said. I said, I keep thinking to myself that the next level for me is going to come when I get to the point of being a world team member or a Pan Am team member. I keep thinking that that's the next level for me, that the only way that I'll get to that moment is when I make a stipend and I don't have to work and I can live off this podcast and I can do all that stuff. When in reality, to get to that point, I first have to trudge through mountains and mountains of shit to even get to that point, you know.
Exactly.
Like that's not the next level. The next level is the fact, like, is waking up early and doing everything I have to do in order to make that happen. It's not just gonna happen.
Right.
But just kind of getting back to it, Rocky just keeps rocking around the rink, and he just kind of says that it worked out for the best. That things probably worked out for the best because he was a southpaw, because he was going to look stupid if he tried, because he didn't get a shot. You know, he's content. I don't think he's really content, but he's content to be in the situation that he is at that moment, which is a bum. Yeah. And it was funny, Santiago and I looked at each other at that point when it was like, what does that mean? What does that mean? So it worked out for the best. It's like, it's not good. It's not bad. So it goes.
So it goes.
Money.
That's a nice little T-shirt.
Adrian then asked him
Tattooed,
right
yeah.
after if he never got a chance because he. So she just kind of confirmed it. She's like, so you never got a chance because you were left-handed, and he goes, yeah. He confirms it. So it's in his own mind. He's counted himself out way before. Cute little side note. Rocky's turtles, they're named Cuff and Link, and it's kind of like ironic because Santiago and I see a bunch of stupid cuff links all day. And the other part was when like Rocky and Adrian went on their date and like came back to his house. That was creepy. Like
very
Rocky seriously could have just been like a slow version of Ted Bundy. Like
Actually, that's what it looked like if you think about it.
It's
It's like, you're going nowhere.
Dang.
Yeah,
She wanted to leave, and he's like,
Yeah.
no, we're not.
Yeah.
I was like, you're staying.
He straight up said, I want to kiss you, and was already leaning in.
Yeah, he was
and
like,
he's like, you don't have to. He said, you don't have to kiss back. Like he literally, he said it too. Like, yeah,
That's right. He did
Crazy,
say
bro.
that.
dude,
It's
it's
great.
terrible.
He's just sitting there
He
with.
said that. He said, you don't have to kiss
He's
back.
sitting there with his big arms up here. It's like the implication. He's like
That's
on a boat,
right.
like you're in my
He's
apartment.
wearing his.
You have to like.
And of all things, he's wearing a wife beater shirt.
That's not good, bro.
That's not good.
I really feel like I wouldn't handle that well.
No, it's not like
That's-
she
I feel like I would do
ha-
this
she's
whole,
in
like,
she's in his
She's
apartment.
in his armpits.
Like she's in his
Yeah,
apartment.
no, it was pretty bad. It
He-
was terrible.
He can't like she can't really say no because of the implication. Like that's not okay.
Damn.
Then like they kiss and then they do it right by the door and whatever. And then the next day Rocky rolls into Mickey's gym. To I think just get his locker back or go pick his shit up. And then and him and Mick kind of throw words back and forth to each other because
Rocky's lockers.
no, that was before. But
that was before?
This was when
What was
Mickey
it?
said that they had the guy from Apollo's office come
Oh,
in.
they left
They
him a
left him a
message.
message because
Yeah.
they want to talk to him, and
Yeah, yeah.
and then and Mickey just kind of goes off on a tangent, just calling Rocky a waste of life and a waste of talent
Right.
because he's just been a bum. He's been doing dumb shit, just being just an asshole, kind of a debt collector, bone crusher, that kind of stuff. So if anyone,
Making a living though.
yeah, I mean, if anyone's
Well,
ever,
that's what he
bills.
said. He said
He said, yeah, that's right. He
it
said
makes a living.
he's like, it makes a
And he
living.
said
And
it's a
that's-
waste of life.
And then that's what Mickey said. It was a waste of life. Yeah. So I mean, if anyone here has ever felt like a waste of life, just say aye.
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 No.
Of course not.
Right.
Are you kidding
Okay.
me? Never.
So then, right after that, Rocky goes and he talks to the promoter. He talks to Apollo's guy, and Rocky goes in with the impression that he's going to be his Apollo's sparring partner. And he was going to get him trained up for the fight properly, and then he just kind of goes like, "No, that's not what I'm talking about. We want you to fight. We want you to fight Apollo. We want you to fight him himself." And immediately, right when he asks him, he goes, "Do you want to fight him?" He says no. He says no. Like
Damn.
his first answer is no.
That was an opportunity.
And because he says that he's real ham and egger, whatever that means, and the fight wouldn't look good because it's Rocky versus the champ.
Right.
So he basically counted himself out right when he was asked. Right when the opportunity was presented, he counted himself out. And
Well, you never looked it up then? Ham and egger?
ham and egg, what does that mean?
An ordinary person of little consequence.
Oh wow!
So you didn't
oh,
look
you
it
know
up.
what? It means like average Joe, like
Average
someone
Joe.
who eats fucking ham and eggs for
So-
breakfast every day.
Basically. So it's equivalent to what? Huevos and frijoles every single morning?
Yeah, something like
There
that.
you go. Papas
Gaucho.
and frijoles.
There
Gaucho.
you go.
Gaucho.
Huevos y frijoles.
But I mean, in reality, like, I
So true though, man. Tell me, Grandpa
I
Felix
can't-
doesn't eat like that.
Again,
I know my dad
I
does.
definitely can't say that he does not
Right,
like that.
right. I know. I remember that. I remember when I used to visit them.
if there's anything, I mean, if there's anything,
And my dad still eats like that, by the way.
if there's anything that happened in this particular scene, it was definitely the fact that he counted himself out right at the start. He thought the idea was too big, or he thought the
Too
opportunity
big.
was
That's
too
a good.
big.
That's a good point. Yeah.
He
too
thought it
big.
was too big for someone like himself.
Yep.
Now, me personally, I sometimes think I have the opposite problem where I say yes to too many challenges,
Right.
and that puts me in a bad position because I don't really think of the consequence of overexerting myself or putting myself out there too much. Like with work, for like my job, for example, I've always been one of those go-getter kind of guys where any opportunity comes my way, I want to take advantage of it, and I want to do my best. But in a weird position where I had to really focus on my athletic career, I had to focus on something like this podcast. I had a lot of stuff around me, and I go and I take a job as a manager. It's putting an unnecessary amount of stress on myself. And, it kind of shot me in my own ass. And
Yeah. But what was the conversation that we had when that came up?
What?
We had a conversation about that when the opportunity came up for you.
That it was
store manager.
It was a good opportunity, and there was no downside to it. But
What was the downside?
nothing.
Exactly.
But realistically, I mean, sometimes when opportunity presents itself, sometimes you really have to think about the end game. You have to think about, we're in the end game now, Tony. You have to think about your goals. But I mean,
Well, that's if you have any, right?
Yeah.
Some people, let's be honest, don't.
I mean, any one of you, have you guys ever been in a situation where something presented itself like that? You kind of have that moment. You kind of have something kind of laid out on a plate for you, and you think it's too big. You think it's too big for yourself. You think you can't handle it.
Not off the top of my head, I can't think of any.
I'm sure. What
But
do you mean?
I'm-
There's got to be something.
Well, not off the top of my head.
It
I
might not be
definitely have
big, but it could be something. You know, like there's got to be something. that
I
you
see Megan's
experience.
face. She wants to say
Yeah, for me, it's probably trying to balance doing two sports right now.
Oh, what sports are those?
Competitive all-star cheerleading and weightlifting.
Well, it's not just that, like, because you're also coaching competitive.
And I'm coaching. Yeah.
So you're coaching.
Mm-hmm.
You're an athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're coaching these kids for the competitive cheer.
Mm-hmm.
You're also a world team athlete, right? Or what is it? What is
It's an international level 6 world team. And
that's a high team for everybody who doesn't know. No.
yeah, it's pretty legit.
If you don't know, now you know. I know.
Yeah, I originally, if I'm being completely honest, I've been retired for like 5 years. So in cheer, the timeline of like when you cheer is not like weightlifting. Your prime in weightlifting is probably like
20. No, it's 20.
Like,
it's 27.
27.
27 to 30.
Oh, really?
That's what it is.
Okay, then I totally jacked that up. But that's like your prime, right?
Yeah.
In cheer, like you're tumbling by the time you're 6 or 7, and you're usually done by like 17, 18. Anything above that is a little late, but it's still like okay in college and maybe some open teams. But for me, it's not. It wasn't part of my plan. And when they first presented it to me, I'll be super honest. As much as I like it, it's a great opportunity. And it's a big deal because I haven't been on a world stage, so that's a pretty big deal. But with all that being said, I know that I also am trying to be as elite as I can be in weightlifting. And so to really put things in perspective, it's a really big decision to decide to compete at the caliber of the current sport that you're doing in that caliber.
Yeah.
Like, your body goes through a lot. So the way that I have to kind of like alter workouts, my recovery is going to be different with how busy like working. And this isn't making excuses, because I really do have like the best job. I'm doing everything that I love to do. So it's all these incredible things, but it's also knowing like, because I'm going to be doing 2 sports, my body isn't going to be as recovered, which is going to affect weightlifting, and at some point is going to affect cheer. And then on top of that, like when you're coaching, you can't be off your A game. Like you have to be present. You have to get the job done, because you have all these little kids that depend on you. And then with all that going, although that's incredible, when you go to work, I nanny, so I deal with little kids there too, and you can't really not be present there either. So it's kind of just deciding. I have to be extremely particular with my time.
It's
like,
just like the task at hand is daunting. It
Right.
as a whole is daunting, and
right.
sometimes you don't feel cut out for it.
Oh, 100. Like,
Yeah.
I just had a talk with
There-
Sage about it.
Yeah, there's just so much on your plate,
Right.
but it's all good stuff. It's
It
all
is,
stuff
and
you're
that's
moving.
like
Yeah.
this. That's I can't complain.
Yeah.
Like, I really can't, because one person could be like, okay, well, then just don't do it. And I'm like, well, I mean,
I love
I'll
it.
never,
Yeah.
I'll never be able to do it again after this season. And in complete honesty, like, I've been blessed to be given the opportunity to do it. And then weightlifting, like, I'm sorry, I've worked way too hard to walk away from that sport, and I'm way too invested. Like, that's just, that's not going anywhere. So
It's your perfect moment.
yeah, exactly. And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay,
It's our moment.
this is when you kind of have to look at it as them complementing each other. So there's going to be times, you know, when I'm in mid-competition season in cheer and I'm competing, you know, every weekend or every other weekend. But then it's like, okay, but you have a meet here, but just because you have a meet here doesn't mean that you don't go to practice the next day. It's just, it's finding balance and knowing what I can do and how to recover properly. So it's going to take a minute, for sure.
What about you there, Gaucho? What about you? Any opportunities or anything that you feel that you count yourself out immediately?
Gosh, actually, no. I mean, most of the time, you know what it is? It's most of the time it's all psyche. It is psyche.
Well, you're counting yourself out.
Yeah. I mean, but then again, can you realize that that's what that is, right? Can a person realize at that very moment that it's all your psyche? It's not that it's true. It's the little story that we're telling ourselves in our head that we're already basically counting ourselves out. Kind of like Rocky, right?
That's what he did. Yeah.
Yeah, he's already counted himself out because
that's
he's
what I'm
just
asking
kind of
you.
repeating the story.
And that's what I'm asking you. Is there stuff that happens, or is there any opportunities lately where you've kind of counted yourself out because of your psyche?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, trading in the stock market, for example, I lost big. So and not only lost big, then I come back and I get back into it after what, a year? Was it a year? No, it was 8 months. And as soon as I get back into it, I start losing again. So it's like this repetitive thing where you're just like, damn, you keep losing, right? So your psyche, you just keep playing.
Your doubt builds.
It just, it's
Like,
like, here we go again. But the thing is, that's the part where
You might have a problem.
no, it's not gambling, okay? No. You know what? It's not, and I'll tell you why. There's a big difference, because if I really sit there and I didn't want to.
Listen, he's rationalizing his addiction.
I'm not rationalizing my professional gambling, by the way. No, you know what? Anything that we do, right? Anything that we fail at.
Anything you do is going to require psyche. So
no. What I'm saying, I know, but again, doesn't matter whether we fail or whatever. The point is us sitting down, and then being like Rocky and saying, "I'm afraid," and at the same time saying, "What's going on? Like, why is this happening?" Mm-hmm. Those are questions that we have to ask ourselves. Like, why? Yeah. Like, why is this happening? What am I doing wrong? Like, what am I doing that, or what could I do? But like, it's asking these important, strict questions and specific questions, and then trying to answer them yourself. Because everybody's gonna give you opinions, but you're the one that has to answer it for yourself, because you're the one that has to deal with yourself. You're the one that's living. You go to sleep being you wake up being you live the day being you eat with yourself. It's like, listen, all this is you.
who was it? I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was David Goggins. It might have been David Goggins or my friend Abdul. One of the two. They're kind of like the same
Hey,
people.
bud.
But he goes. You're the only person that has to sleep. Oh, it was Abdul. No, it was.
Oh, is it?
He goes. He said. He's like, when you go to sleep at night, and you sleep next to Bailey. He's like. Truthfully, you're the only person. You're the only person who goes to bed with you. You're the only person that wakes up with you. You're the only person that's responsible for you. So, granted, in 1976, Rocky's just a big dummy. He's getting his head caved in, and there's not really a good, stance on mental health down there in that area and emotions. But I'm sure that if you look at like the Creed movies, they do a better job at that emotion seeking on the inside. Oh, Bailey's home.
Bailey's home.
Yeah, but you're right. At that time, that wasn't
Yeah.
going on. Like what's happening now, it's a whole different ball game. But yeah.
What about you, hitter? What about you, cowboy?
Yeah. So it goes.
I mean,
What's going on?
It's, we've gone through it several times. I mean, talking about work and obviously busy season. I've done pretty crappy in school, and I mean, trying to balance school and work in itself, and trying to help with my family, trying to get my own life, on a good jump, on a good start, and I didn't know. I really had nothing going for me. I didn't have anything that I wanted to do until just recently when I realized what, maybe I should do something I'm passionate about, or at least attempt something that I'm passionate about, which music, that being music. And I mean, just trying to study that, and I mean, just trying to get, like I said, a jump start on what it is that I want to do eventually, trying to invest in in something, and try to just create money, and trying to create passive income. That way I give myself more free time, and am able to do things that I want, which include music and just helping people in general. I love doing all those things, but obviously, yeah, it's hard to change the world when you're struggling to go to school and go to work, So I mean, that in itself is a complicated task.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it because I thought about it in a different light. But with what it is that I'm pursuing now, because of the fact that I took a step back from a responsibility role at work to be more selfish about what it is that I want to do, we're talking about stuff that I feel that we're not cut out for. Coming up at the end of this month, like I'm going to go out and I'm going to get my coaching certification for USAW. So I'm going to get my level 1, getting that on August 24th and 25th, which is Megan's birthday. She's turning 25.
Shoot. So old.
But the whole point of that,
Jesus Christ.
the whole point of going out and getting that certification was, I was going to take a step back from work, and I am going to make my way into some sort of coach at a school, at a gym somewhere. That's the point. But honestly, then there were a couple times after the initial thought of it where I'm sitting back and I'm thinking, like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Like, I'm sitting there reeling, just kind of doubting myself already about the lack of stuff the lack of experience I have, the lack of everything I have now. But, I just think I'm not cut out for it. But it's funny the way that the universe works and the way that the world works, because there was one day in particular when I was sitting there doubting myself, and one of my buddies and listeners to this podcast, he just kind of messages me on Instagram, and him and I have a conversation, and he just kind of tells me how he really heard what I had to say on one of the episodes, and he resonated with it, and he told me that that
anyone would be lucky to be your coach, or for you to be their coach.
And that really just kind of resonated with me. It was kind of crazy, because that was the first time I've ever heard it out of somebody else's mouth. Someone that I didn't even know knows nothing about me aside from my weightlifting and what I do here. And it was just crazy. So Yeah, I guess it's fair to say that, you can feel down and out, and you can feel counted out before you even start anything. But what's up, Megan?
Kind of playing off of what you just said, I think that fear is actually the best sign when you're starting something new. And the reason why is because I think it also shows your level of investment. Because if you're not invested, if you really think about it, you're not fearful because to you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's awesome when you talk about how that scares you, because that lets me know and everybody else who's listening to what you're talking about know how much you care about it and how much you care about how you want to create change in the sport, yes, but also in these kids' lives. And it's not a little thing. Like, if you really think about it, people could be like, oh, it's just like a high school position, or oh, it's just a youth coach position. It's not just a youth coach position. You are in a position where you are gifted the responsibility of being able to influence these young kids who look up to you and think the world of you and want to be you someday, to want to believe in something bigger than themselves. And then in the process, also believing in themselves to do things to have a change in the people around them. So it's kind of like, what's that called? Like a ripple effect, but it's not a ripple effect.
That's what it is.
Is it?
Or a domino effect.
Yeah.
Or is it domino
Well, I mean,
effect?
when you
Yeah.
throw
Well, either
when you
way.
throw a
Probably
rock
ripple.
when you throw a rock in water, and then everything that
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of touches, that's ripple
Okay, then
effect.
sweet. But yeah, so that's exactly it. You're not just affecting one kid,
Yeah.
because that kid's gonna go to another kid.
That's a
The
domino
cycle-
effect.
Oh, then you know what? Sweet. But that's all gonna keep going, and that starts with you.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're afraid, like, it would worry me if you were like, whatever, piece of cake, walk in the park, you're lucky, like, I'll sign your shoes, whatever, like, that to me is super ignorant, and
Yeah.
it means that you think so little of what you're trying to do.
I think and Bailey said that when at dinner as well. She said, no, she just texted it to me when I told her that I was really afraid. It was like right after I had told my district manager that I wanted to take a step down. She had told me, like, if your dreams don't scare you, if your goals don't scare you, they're not big enough.
Right,
And it's like, that's exactly what it is.
And, like, how boring would that be if you were like, oh, I'm gonna, like, do this
Easy.
with my life,
Easy.
and, like, I know I'm gonna do it. It's not gonna, like, I'm just gonna coast.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be so boring.
So pressing forward with the movie, later on,
Yeah, where are we?
Dude, I don't
where
even know.
well, they're eating dinner. That's when they're eating dinner. Oh no, not eating dinner. That was right after they announced the fight.
Oh,
Oh, wait.
That's right. He's at home and he's doing the,
So at
the
this
press
point,
conference.
he agreed. You said that he said no, and so then we talked about.
He said they
being
said no,
afraid.
and then he took the fight, and now they announced the fight,
Oh, sick. Okay.
and
So they're watching it, right?
yeah,
on
they're
TV.
watching it, and then that's when they ask him, like, hey, how'd you come up with the name Italian Stallion?
Right.
Because earlier in the movie, when Apollo's looking for an opponent, he's like, ooh, Apollo Creed versus the Italian Stallion. That's a fight. That's America's fight right there. That's America's ass. Yeah. Yeah. Wait, have you seen that movie? Have you seen Endgame?
Yeah.
Yeah. You haven't seen it. You don't even like Marvel.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Yes, I do. Did you see Black Panther?
Shut
Oh,
up.
I'm so into that right now.
Shut
I
up.
want to paint my face every day.
Oh my god.
What?
Wait, paint your face like what?
Like tribal makeup.
Oh my god, she's just making it worse, bro. She's just making it worse
No,
and worse.
I don't. No,
No,
I
it's-
I feel no shame.
Oh my god. Okay, it's not me. It's Megan.
I'm
So then,
She did say she wasn't wearing makeup, so.
not.
okay, it's
You're gonna
right.
go
It's
tribal.
right. So
Thank you for that.
there's a part where, so Apollo's sitting there earlier trying to figure out a person to fight, and then later on in the movie when they're announcing it, they talk to Rocky about how he came up with the name, and he just goes, I came up with it 8 years ago at the dinner table, just kind of shrugging it off like it wasn't an important thing, and I was just thinking, the only reason why Rocky got that opportunity was because of his name. Something that you don't think about, something that he really didn't care about. I mean, it was just his name, but he didn't put that much thought into it, kind of like Apollo did. And I guess the message you got to take away from that is something as insignificant, something that you don't think about, something that you just kind of gloss over, can be the thing that attracts you to somebody else, that attracts you to an opportunity, or an opportunity attracts itself to you. I don't know. I guess you can kind of say. I guess you can kind of say that. You know, you don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself to the things that you don't think are important. You know, you in what it is that you are doing, that you're goal driven with. You want to make sure that all aspects are kind of making sure that you're taking care of all those aspects. You know.
Yeah.
So then we're kind of back to the part where, like, right after that, Paulie's being an asshole, kicks them out of the house, kicks Rocky and Adrian out of the house, and during the press conference, they were talking a bunch of shit, not really saying anything positive about Rocky. They're like, "Oh, you're an underdog. No one knows you.
Right.
You're just kind of a big fucking goon. Like, what are you even doing here?" It was a really shitty time for Rocky. And while they're talking about it, while Rocky and Adrian and Paulie are talking about it in the living room, he just kind of glosses over the fact that he's like, "Yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna fuck about what those guys have to say about me. I don't care." And then when Paulie kicks him out, they're walking away. That's when he kind of sits, and he just kind of looks at the ground, and he tells Adrian, he's like, "You know what? That did mess with me. Like, it bothered me." He broke down and kind of just admitted that it bothered him. And we kind of sat and talked about that one for like 20 minutes. Like, the way we watched this movie was kind of annoying as fuck if you were just a straight Rocky fan.
Yeah, straight up.
But I think it added a layer to the. I think it added a real fun layer to all this because of just going in depth and breaking it down, especially for Santiago, because he watched the movie in full today. But honestly, like, for him to be that open about the fact that he was personally that affected by it, he was open and criticism. He was open and receptive to the criticism, even though, you know, most criticism that you get is unwarranted and unwanted. I think most of the criticism that kind of strikes a nerve with you is the stuff that tends to be true. Not all the criticism is true that's out there, like the examples that we kind of gave each other, where, you know, if I'm looking at Santiago and I sit there and I say that, one, you know, he's unmotivated, he's uncreative, and then the other one that he's fat. You know, obviously he's not fat. He's 165 pounds, right?
Oh, like 175.
Oh, he's a little buff. He's like 175. He's not. He's not he's creative. He's sitting here, and I see him every day at work, sitting there and making beats. Sometimes playing on his phone that he fucking lost, playing on the little keyboard.
Yeah.
You know, trying to make music. You know, the only thing that really might strike him is the fact that he's unmotivated. You know, so not everything that someone dishes out to you is necessarily true, but the things that are true tend to piss you off a little bit more. And I think everyone here, I think us three had something to say about this. So, Gaucho, what do you think about this part, about being receptive to criticism, or his ability, or his inability, or his ability to open up and be receptive to that criticism?
Well, I think we talked about this, I think, while we were watching the movie, obviously.
Quite extensively.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that, and this is going to be for everybody, and I remember hearing somebody else kind of touch on this too, but they said, you don't want to be criticized, don't do anything, right? Don't do anything. That's a quote. Can't remember who said it. I wish I had it in front of me right now. Maybe if you look it up and kind of tell me who said it. But you don't want to be criticized, don't do anything. It's a good way of not being criticized. And I'll be honest, like, for me, I'll be transparent, is that I've disliked being criticized since I could remember. And I'll tell you right now, if somebody out there dislikes being criticized, good luck, because that means that you won't get far. And that's because if the criticism gets to a person emotionally, like I have, it's gotten to me emotionally to the point where it affects me, because it affects me emotionally. And I don't mean like crying or anything. I just mean emotionally, where it upsets me and it does this and that. And ever since I could remember, like I said, growing up, if I got criticized about something, it bothered me, and it stayed with me. Heck, to this day, it's still with me. Like, there's things that I'll recall from when I was younger, and I'm like, why am I still thinking about this? And it's because the mind basically doesn't really forget painful moments. It'll remind you of these painful moments over and over again. So, yeah, I mean, criticism is part of the game, of everything. Like, if you think about it, right? Athletes criticize all the time. You know, they're in front of people, criticize all the time. Actors, criticized. Politicians, criticized. But you know what? They keep going. That's it. It's part of the game. They're progressing, they're doing stuff. And I those are the things that I'm still learning right now. But if anybody younger than me could get past that and work on it, I'll tell you right now, you will be way ahead, because progress is only done by you actually doing something, right? And progress also is getting past the criticism. You can't get to progress if you don't accept the criticism. You gotta work on the criticism part. And plus, not only that, forget the criticism on the outside. It's the criticism on the inside. That's by far the worst. That's us criticizing ourselves is worse than the outsiders criticizing us. So, yeah, I mean, hey, anything you do, it's the name of the game.
It was Jeff Bezos. And there's a part of it. There's a part of it that said that at least that's what I saw, that it was Jeff Bezos. There's like very different variations of it. There was like, if you don't want to be criticized,
I think it was Jeff Bezos.
Don't do anything new.
Yes.
If you don't be,
it's been a variation of it. Yeah.
That's essentially what I saw where it came from.
Right.
What about you over there, Hitter? What do you think?
Well, I was thinking about, that last bit you said about, self-criticism, and also the fact that you were talking about thinking about times you had been criticized when you were younger. Even think about it in that sense. Why do people have bad memories or, bad memory? It's because they go back and think about that previous memory and, how they felt about it, in that current moment, So, you're always, gaining new perspective on all those things. So, perspective, criticism, you have to take into consideration that maybe you are doing something wrong, not all criticism is, I guess wrong, but not all of it's right. I'm just trying to think why anyone wouldn't necessarily see criticism as something to work on themselves, because there's constructive criticism, there's definitely ways that people quote unquote criticize you. I think it's more so the fact that there's this connotation that criticism plays that's got to be negative. I don't think that criticism is negative. It's just something. It's just a different perspective, is what it is. Not all rock is the same. That's just if someone's gonna say that the Beatles suck, someone over there, in a friggin'
Can't believe it.
Hawaiian shirt. Someone says that the Beatles suck.
Magnum PI.
There's grapefruits on my shirt, and the Beatles are trash.
It's a Hawaiian shirt.
He's just saying that based on somebody else's comment.
That's nobody else's comment besides my own.
You were into the Beatles. What are you talking about?
Okay, you were into the Beatles, you put them on in the car, and I couldn't change the music, or else I would be beaten. He would beat me. He would beat me because I touched his radio. So what am I supposed to say?
Never touch another man's radio.
See?
That's true.
See? But yeah, Beatles are trash.
No. Dude, this guy used to He listened to the Beatles more than I did.
Okay, they have a few good songs like
Nah,
"Hey Jude,"
whatever,
like "Hey Jude."
whatever.
I don't know. Like what
You
else?
don't know what you're talking about.
You know what?
See?
I'm not
That's what I'm
I'm not a
talking about.
60-year-old
Constructive
man.
criticism.
Constructive criticism. The
You don't know
lead
what you're
singer's
talking
dead.
about. You could learn a lot
See,
from it.
I know that guy who took criticism from nobody.
Who
He
did?
thought he was Jesus Christ.
Who
John
was?
Lennon.
What are you talking
He
about?
thought he was God.
He did look like Jesus.
Yeah, he thought he was.
You know what I mean?
But
He
terrible,
looked like
terrible
Jesus.
taste in women.
That's true. Yeah,
They
that's true.
broke
That's
up the
criticism.
Beatles.
That's criticism.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
criticism
Constructive
right there.
criticism.
That's
No,
definitely
no,
not
I think-
constructive.
No,
I think
no, that's not
that is-
constructive.
if I-
Constructive would have been,
if
hey,
I-
John,
if
stay
I-
away from
that
Yoko.
is-
If I could,
I think that's constructive.
I mean,
right?
if I
Hey,
could-
John, stay away from Yoko.
I mean, if I could,
She's bad for you.
If I could leave
she's not a good
any-
I
influence.
mean, yeah, that's critique.
That's a
you know?
critique, right? It's
Yeah.
if I could leave any sort of constructive criticism for the Beatles, it was to just break up, just never get together in the first place.
Hey, well, they made some pretty great music on their own. I'll say that.
Hey, you know what? The White Album, the one that inspired Charlie Manson, I guess,
You know what?
I guess that was pretty good
I
too,
mean,
right?
shoot.
the one that inspired Charlie.
Helter Skelter, that one.
Wow.
Yeah, Helter Skelter. Okay.
Blame it on the
Okay.
Beatles, whatever.
Moving forward. No, he did blame it. Okay, moving forward. Shut up, Maul. All right. And that is episode. That's the end of episode 21. Where do we leave off for the part of the movie? What Rocky was crying to Adrian about the people being mean to him on the news, and then we just started kind of yelling at each other about the Beatles right there towards the end. But that was the first episode. Next episode will be back. Will be posted tomorrow on Tuesday. What is it? August? Yeah, Tuesday, August 13th, I believe. That's what day it's gonna be. We're just gonna finish off with the rest of the movie. We're about, I would say, maybe halfway through the movie. The next episode really is gonna be the big crux of the movie, where we get to the important stuff, the important fighting, the important training montage, all that kind of stuff. That's the fun part. So thank you for bearing with the insane amount of guests. I don't usually have too many guests at a time. Thank you for dealing with the different kind of vibe with this episode. It was definitely a fun episode to record. But yeah, if you have any questions, any comments, anything you want to add to our dialogue so far, feel free to reach out to me on Instagram or the email, the 1000wayspodcast@gmail.com. Also, I didn't mention earlier, but also I do have a website, 1000wayspodcast.com. So 100 ways podcast. Don't go to the Fireside one. The Fireside one is the host website, and that one's not as pretty as the one that I have. And yeah, we're just making big moves, kind of like we were saying in the beginning. Big moves are coming. Big things are happening, and we're really excited and moving forward. So, thank you guys. If you like this episode, or you like this podcast in general, just leave a review of any kind, any sort. 5 stars. You wanna send some constructive criticism my way, kind of like what we were just talking about. Just email me. If you have anything to say, anything you want to reach out to me, please do. I'm always open to it. So thank you guys for listening, and we will be back tomorrow where we can just finish off the rest of this movie, and then after that there will be another episode later on this week. So I appreciate all of you guys, and have a blessed day today. Be easy. Goodbye.